either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are doing our second spotlight. With holidays coming up and schedule conflicts, we didn't have a movie we could go to this month, so...
Sadly, no. One of these days I'll get to Knives Out.
It's good. I did see it.
Have you watched? You don't watch commercials. There's a fake knife commercial starring Martha Stewart and some other cooks for Knives Out the movie. It looks great.
It sounds amazing. I have not seen it. I haven't had cable, and even when I'm at my parents' place, my dad DVRs everything, so he fast forwards through everything.
I feel that.
But yes, I did see Knives Out. It is fantastic.
I will get to it eventually.
You'll like it. I'm not gonna tell you anything other than I do enjoy how the trailer promoted itself.
Good.
But I did also see Dr. Sleep.
Ah, yes.
And oh boy, was that fantastic. Like, if you want to see a movie on how you do a sequel, that's how you do a sequel.
Very nice. I watched a lot of football.
I
don't know any football teams particularly. I'm not a big football lover.
Yeah.
I understand the sport. I understand how the rules work. I choose not to because it annoys my family.
Yeah, I watched the second half of the Husker game. And then I slept through most of the Ohio State game because my mom and I were upstairs and I just slept for like 3 hours.
Sounds like a good vacation.
But anywho, since we weren't able to get to any movies or go to see any movies in theaters together or match up, we decided that we're going to do... we're questioning, with the holidays coming up, what makes a Christmas movie?
Because there's a lot of movies that I watch every year around Christmas time that I guess are technically not Christmas movies. Example being, I watch the first Harry Potter every year in Christmas.
Yes. It
is a Christmas movie to me. There's no reason for it to be a Christmas movie. Well,
I actually have a theory behind that. For me... Well, I was at my parents' house in a little bit of today since I took the day off. I was reading a book, Christmas in the Movies by Jeremy Arnold, which goes over 30 classic holiday movies and just doesn't really go too in-depth into the tropes or anything, but just more over a general summary of the movie, how it did, and what makes it a Christmas movie, kind of. So, for me, I more so took a lot of questions for us to discuss.
Yes. I also have questions.
Good. So rather than focusing on like one specific movie or like couple, I just kind of want to bring up some questions and maybe throw in some insights or...
Yeah, because I don't think there is a correct answer to this question.
No, exactly. And that like how we learn in school, this is an impossible question. There's infinite answers.
Definitely.
So... One of my first things that I start to question is, for it to be a Christmas movie, does it have to be based around the holiday?
I would argue that it does not. Only because if you can manage to get some of the other major tropes, like the family importance, the idea of finding personal joy and self-worth, then no, it does help to have snow. I think.
Yes.
Despite the fact that we will probably not have snow on Christmas. In fact, I don't think we've seen snow on Christmas for a while now.
Last year we had a little bit. We had a light dusting. Because my parents in Omaha didn't have anything, but we did.
We should clarify that a light dusting here in Arkansas, others would scoff at.
No, I completely agree, especially with spending my early years in Alaska.
Yeah, our idea of snow is literally a light dusting upon the roofs. If you're lucky, a little bit on the road at the beginning of the morning, it'll be thawed by 10 o'clock.
Yeah, well, in that regard, if it doesn't have to be based around the holiday, what about 8 Crazy Nights, a Hanukkah movie?
True, very true. I feel like, which is too bad, because Christmas is not the only winter holiday. There's lots of other religions that have other Christmas holidays, like Hanukkah, that I feel like they get overlooked or clumped into the Christmas movie snowball pretty quickly. Which, I don't know. I guess they all have similar overarching tropes.
Yeah,
which put them all together.
A lot of them deal with a dysfunctional family coming together, or two strangers coming together over the holidays to form.
Did you discover in your Christmas movie research of just general movies? I found an uncomfortable number of movies that had to deal with alcoholism. There was a lot of drinking in Christmas movies.
I wouldn't say I found alcoholism as a trope.
I did.
I do agree that there's someone in the family who's the drunk uncle.
Yeah, which I get at some point someone in the writing team thought was hilarious, but it's getting to the point where there's too many drunk uncles. Are we sharing uncles at this point?
Well, I mean, it is a touchy subject.
I guess so, and I think that's another point that makes holiday movies a holiday movie, is it has to have some type of either chaos or uncomfortable growth segment. I liked the phrase chaos that I ran across during my research, because a lot of the Christmas movies that I consider classics, like Home Alone or the Snowman or the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen in it, I would say very much just pure chaos through the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, in many ways we can think of other questionable Christmas movies like Gremlins or Die Hard for two examples.
Yeah.
Questionably Christmas. I mean, that's another thing about setting too. Does snow help, or does it have to be there? Because Die Hard takes place in Los Angeles.
Yes.
In a skyscraper.
But I would also argue that because it takes place over Christmas, it gives the audience an urgency to all of his actions, which, would the movie succeed if it wasn't Christmas? Yeah, probably. Like, I don't think it would have changed that much.
No.
But it does change the, like, basic mindset that you have. Because even if you're not a Christmas person, you still have that mindset in the back of your head of you expect there to be lots of travel, you expect lots of panic from other people in the area. Like, he has a timeline where he needs to be home by Christmas sort of mindset.
Or he's just wanting to be home. He's been traveling, and now he's stuck at a party he doesn't want to be at.
Exactly.
And that's where I feel, and I know that's been an age-old debate. I know my youngest brother doesn't think Die Hard's a Christmas movie at all.
I mean,
whereas
I see it, but at the same time, I'm going to watch it every Christmas.
No, exactly. I can see the argument of it not being a Christmas movie, but I would say it's not a Christmas movie in the very traditional sense. It's a very non-traditional Christmas movie, very much so like A Nightmare Before Christmas, which the older I get, the more I feel it's more of a Christmas movie than a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Because, one, we have Jack Skellington, who the whole movie focuses around Christmas, and it's this nightmare creature that all of a sudden decides, you know what? I'm going to do Christmas myself this year.
Yes.
And then, at the end, he realizes he has something special. They are a dysfunctional family.
Yeah. It does very much fit into the trope. I also noticed another major overarching theme that I don't think appears as much the rest of the year. Magic. The amount of miracle-working magic, or just random Christmas magic, that happens around the holiday season seems much more heavy-handed than I would argue the rest of the year's movies have.
Well, that can link back to something a little different. So when we first talked about, we're going to be doing Christmas movies, and we were going to talk about what makes a Christmas movie, I was thinking of potentially doing a deconstruction of the holiday itself and going back to its pagan roots. And that could be why Christmas movies have so much magic imbued with them, is because we have this, the holiday itself is a takeover of the winter solstice festivals.
Potentially.
And so that idea of this time being a magical year, especially after fall and death being common, that it's that kind of carries through the holidays, but we've twisted it and made it a more joyous, more pleasant kind of magic.
Yeah, potentially. I also think that this is the time of year where, especially if you're nativity set style Christmas person, the idea of angels and the working of miracles seems much more appealing and present at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, a lot of that comes from the movies like Miracle on 34th Street,
Mm-hmm.
which I think the two have influenced each other to the point of just an endless circle.
Yeah.
You can't have Christmas without some holiday Christmas magic. Looking at you, Tim, getting turned into Santa Claus. That is scary.
Oh, took me a second there. I thought you were referencing like a cartoon movie or something.
No, I wish. That was not my favorite. But at the same time, I think it also links back a little bit to like the nostalgia of Christmas for a lot of people. Because Christmas feels magical just from an aesthetic point of view from a kid. There's lots of lights. You get presents from a random stranger who slides down your chimney. And then you feed him cookies. He apparently lives on cookies.
Yeah.
And so having that magic brought back to you in the movies that you watch, even as an adult, I think reinforces that nostalgia feel. Which I would argue nostalgia is a huge portion of holiday movies.
That's one of the big questions I had, is how important is nostalgia for a Christmas film or a holiday film? Because for my family, our general family tradition, unless we have guests for the most part, has been to go see a movie on Christmas or Thanksgiving. And for me, like you said, the first Harry Potter for you is a Christmas movie.
Sure.
All Harry Potters for me are Christmas movies because that's generally around the time we'd see them. Same with, even though I like the movies, The Hunger Games, I associate them with Christmas because that's when we saw them.
I would say the same thing, though. Like, I feel like that's when I watched The Hunger Games every year, was around Christmas. It doesn't follow any of the basic characteristics of a Christmas movie, but that's kind of when I feel like watching it.
And it's what brought families together.
Sure.
Specifically my family, but like the newest Hobbit movies. I don't necessarily consider Lord of the Rings a Christmas movie. But
I would agree. But Hobbit creeps into Christmas somehow.
No.
There's no reason for it, but it does. It feels like a Christmas movie.
Well, how I can see that goes with it is it's a dysfunctional family. Lord of the Rings, that dysfunctional family breaks up at the very beginning, like in the first of the three movies.
True.
Hobbit, the family's together for all three movies.
I would say that's fair. I would also say that classics or reimagined classics like The Hobbit also like more quickly put themselves in Christmas movie category for me, because like, example, I know there's new Christmas movies that came out recently. There's that new Nativity movie that came out either this year or last year.
I have no clue. There's so many.
But the movies that I rewatch aren't even from when I was a kid. They're movies from when my grandparents were young.
Yes.
And we just rewatch them every year because that's the tradition, that's the nostalgia.
Yeah. And I mean that goes back to family traditions, because like we've talked about this. There's a lot of Christmas movies that are staples of people's childhood, such as The Peanuts or The Snowman. Those are not mine.
I was gonna say your least favorite one by far, I think, is Christmas Story, right?
Oh God, yeah.
And yet my husband would defend its honor to the death.
Yeah, I mean, I
think that movie in particular is a very good example. Yes, it centers around Christmas and the idea of Christmas presents in particular, but the bulk of the movie is based around the audience's reaction to the ideas of their own childhood and how that's represented in the movie. Because that, like, most of the jokes are things that someone in the movie room would say, oh, my dad or my uncle was like that. My dad wanted a leg lamp. How funny. Like, of course our outlets had that many plugins around Christmas time. Like, that link to the movie, I think, is what made it a classic.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think, and here, So when I was reading about it a little bit, a couple things struck me because I read it back to back with the description of Home Alone.
Another classic.
And I think what sets it apart is Home Alone is this very innocent movie where it is all from the kid's point of view.
Yes.
Whereas A Christmas Story is told from the adult's point of view, and he's providing this narrative, and it really stuck with me because one of my brothers and I, we absolutely hate that movie. And we hate that, and mainly for the scene, oh fudge.
Yes.
Well, I didn't exactly say that. And I guess it's kind of this almost false narrative we're given.
Yes, very much so.
That he's telling this story of, this is what I thought it should be. This is how it actually was as I'm narrating over it.
Yes.
Rather than just telling a straightforward story. It's kind of double speaking, contradicting, and backtracking itself.
Yes, and I think part of the reason why a lot of families find that version of the story arguably more compelling and more required watch than even Home Alone is because that's how a lot of families themselves tell stories. Is there's one person who's supposed to be telling the story, it's from their point of view, and then there's an aunt or an uncle or a cousin who's interjecting, be like, that is not what you said.
No, and
I think it's that family dynamic, and then also the fact that a lot of people grew up watching it to the point where they can quote me the whole movie, which is obnoxious because it's a very long movie. Yeah,
and Last Christmas, or Friendsmas, your father-in-law and husband were both...
They very much love that movie. Yes, it's definitely one of their favorites.
I mean,
we've talked about this before. Quotability for a movie will make it like 20 times more of a favorite.
Yes.
Even if like deep down it's not like their most thought-provoking or even favorite movie. Good example, Shrek could potentially be my favorite movie. I can quote you the whole thing. I don't actually like the movie. But I can quote it to you, so thus it must, like, I must like it.
Yeah. Like, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, so, in regards to that, nice little segue here, the director for A Christmas Story, and my next question, he also directed Black Christmas and Porky's.
Of course.
So... My question, does it have to be a happy ending? Or, like, what about a Christmas horror film, like Gremlins, or Black Christmas, or recently Krampus?
Or even, wasn't there that one where a bunch of hunters kidnapped Santa Claus who was eating all their reindeer with naked elves?
I have not heard of that one.
Me neither. I ran into it today while I was definitely working very hard, and...
Well, that is something that is going to have to be added to my list because
it looked right up you and Crystal's alley. I'm going to have to find it. But I would say that there is a very few number of Christmas movies that truly have an unhappy ending. And I think those are the ones that once people get older, they tend to remember one or two of those as like, that's a classic, it's good, but they're not going to immediately jump to it, because I think a lot of Christmas movies, the entire point is that, yes, it's an adult movie, but you're fine if your kids are there in the room with you, for the most part.
Like National Lampoon's Christmas.
Yeah. Which, I understand, it's a time of family being around. Sometimes you cannot control the number of cousins in the room.
Yeah.
And so, it makes sense.
And also, it's the fact of getting your family to agree on a specific kind of film because some of you have different tastes than others.
Definitely. Because even amongst, like, definitely that's a traditional Christmas movie, there's definite genres of Christmas movies.
Yeah. Like, I could definitely get my family to, or I could get my brother, my dad, and maybe my mom to get around to watch a horror film on Christmas, but one of my brothers, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, a couple years ago, I came across a horror film called A Christmas Horror Story.
Oh, sure.
And William Shatner's in it.
Oh, as he should be.
He plays a drunkard, radio host warning about how the holiday really is.
Good.
And it's an anthology like the VHS series where it's small vignettes of people going through the holidays.
Okay, alright. I could see the appeal. I would also argue, though, that a lot of Christmas movies that get put in the classic tradition category also have not necessarily traditional Christmas music, but some form of Christmas music in them, even if they're not a Christmas movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I can kind of see it with like a Nightmare Before Christmas, where
exactly
it feels like when he enters Christmas land and it's got the sleigh bells going and it's got the little jingle.
Yeah, he attempts a version of Jingle Bells.
Oh yeah, when he and they pull the dead fish.
Yeah.
Thing, yeah.
And I think having some form of memorable music definitely helps solidify it, which I think is why films like Gremlins and quite a few of the ones that sit on the fence for people sit on the fence so hard is because there isn't that Christmas jingle that instantly comes to mind with the movie.
Yeah, because I know at one point the Gremlins try and sing I think they try singing Jingle Bells.
Yes.
And it just doesn't, like, it doesn't stick in your head. It's a comedic part, but it doesn't, it's not super memorable.
No, and I think part of the reason that even the smaller films that aren't even necessarily a full movie, like the Peanuts movie, have stuck around so long is the Peanuts music especially their Christmas Peanuts music, is phenomenally good. And so some of us will watch the movie just to listen to the jazzified Christmas carols.
Yeah, and I have no point of reference for that because I honestly have never seen a single Peanut movie.
Some top quality jazz.
Maybe. Well, in regards to music-wise, what about classic movies like It's a Wonderful Life?
True. That
doesn't really have super, like, I know there's scores behind it, but I don't remember any of it.
I know you don't, but I know other people definitely do. And I think a lot of the Christmas carols that now have been resung by other people originally came from a lot of those movies, or originally were starred off in those movies. Yeah,
like White Christmas, sung by Bing Crosby, the one we know.
Yes.
And then there was another one that was premiered in a movie Judy Garland was actually in. What Christmas song was it? I should have written this stuff down. I didn't really take notes while I was reading this, but the movie was called Meet Me in St. Louis.
No, it's Meet Me in St. Louis.
Sure.
No, that's actually what the movie's called.
Is it?
Yeah, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Why? It's spelled St. Louis.
I know, that's just how it is.
Well, anywho, the song was Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
Yes.
And, like, it was a much darker song. Like, this could be your last Christmas, so just enjoy it. Whereas, like...
Now it's definitely a classical. Even the movie and the song are classics that have been retold countless times. I would also say that even movies that don't necessarily predominantly feature like a carol song always have some tune to them that you don't hear outside of the holiday season. So, example would be the Home Alone theme. I only heard it during Christmas because it was on every commercial for every VHS tape of all three Home Alones.
Yeah.
And it just got ingrained in your head, the imagery of that song, plus the Christmas lights, plus the snow.
And I think there's a fourth Home Alone now, too.
Is there? I need to see that one.
Yeah. Well...
I mean, not that the third one was that great, but I didn't hate it.
No, as a kid I didn't hate it either, but like Elf, for example. Elf has a lot of Christmassy songs to it, but the main one that is predominant in the film is... I don't know the actual name of it. He sees you. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Elf is, I think, a good example of, like, the overarching humor of Christmas movies. There's a lot of slapstick. There's a lot of innocent humor where some character does something, it's funny because it's embarrassing, but they don't know. Kind of like when Buddy the Elf gifted lingerie to his dad.
Yeah, which is kind of a great moment because he's such an innocent character.
He is a wonderfully innocent character.
And then they throw that in, and it's like,
yes.
Okay.
There's a level of awkward tension throughout a lot of the holiday comedy movies that I don't think necessarily register in normal comedy movies throughout the year. Awkwardness, sure. Innocent awkwardness? I don't see that as much.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in a lot of these movies that are from the child's point of view.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas we get movies that are definitely more geared towards the adults, like Bad Santa.
Yes.
Which,
Bad Santa.
Which, question there. They have that innocent child in there, but
yeah,
he doesn't really grow. The growth is all about Billy Bob Thornton's character.
Yeah, definitely.
Is Bad Santa a Christmas movie?
I think for a lot of families it is. For my family, though, especially because of just who in my family is the ones saying nay to the movies. Like you said, you can convince most of your family, can't convince every person in your family.
Exactly.
Bad Santa is definitely one of those movies that, like, maybe if some of the members of my family had been asleep already, we could have gotten away watching. But, you know, even, like, we tend to keep it incredibly Hallmark PG friendly. Which, there's no reason for. Like, my brother is the youngest person in our family. He's, I think, 18 now. So, not necessary, but it's still a tradition that we've continued to do. And, I don't know, it's fine, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely understand where that's coming from. Maybe when they were younger, like, I have a younger brother who's 6 years younger than me.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, he was in elementary school, so of course we're gonna play more age-appropriate movies, but, like, my dad would start taking me to horror films, or we'd stay up late watching them.
Sure. I also think, and this is kind of, I think it varies, because, so, this is a good movie example. To watch Bad Santa is more of a, you own it on DVD, or you went and rented it sort of movie. A lot of the movies that we watched were already on ABC, because we were very much a family of, we didn't necessarily record things. Sometimes we would, but mostly it was turn on ABC or whatever local channel was on, and whatever movie they're playing, that's what you're watching. Which meant we watched the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special, we watched the weird Snowman, Frosty the Snowman, and then of course we watched ones like Home Alone, because they were on all the time. Yeah,
well, that's an interesting thing too, and that's something that television brings into account too, because in my reading, there's a handful of Christmas movies that did poorly in the box office, but are only remembered now because they fell into public domain and were picked up in the 70s by TV stations. So
I think that's why a lot of Christmas movies are the classics that they are, because don't get me wrong, they're good movies to an extent, but they're not that good.
Well,
but because they're on TV, I've gotten in the habit of watching them. I don't like the claymation of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He's obnoxious and he hurts my ears.
Well,
but he's on every year. I'm gonna watch him again this year, even though I don't really like him. I'm gonna watch him again.
Then in that regards, how, let's say, blasphemous is it for movies channels to play Indiana Jones marathons or James Bond marathons over the holidays?
Okay, someone made a good point of this over the weekend. I think for some people, James Bond is a Christmas series, like how Harry Potter is a Christmas series for me.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that there's no real reason for it to be, other than the fact that I would argue that the channels that are not playing the super kid-friendly movies are then playing classics of other genres, like Indiana Jones, like James Bond, like Harry Potter, Star Wars. Those are all being played on the other channels, which are still safe for if your little baby cousin walks in the room, but it's at least something that you want to watch.
Yeah.
Which, at that point, you're rewatching a movie you've already seen and love.
Yeah, and I can see that too. Now
I would argue that's potentially how Die Hard became such a classic, because I do remember it coming on like one of the like movie channels.
Yeah.
Not normal TV, but like the DirecTV movie channel that plays movies all the time.
Yeah, and I don't know. I honestly didn't see Die Hard until about 4 years ago or so, so.
By the time I got around to watching it every year, I didn't have DirecTV anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of my theory.
Well, let's talk about a little thing in addition to this then. So, we've talked about part of our holidays are series.
Oh, sure.
How important is marketability and sequels to Christmas movies then? I
think originally, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think originally the focus for a lot of these companies was the family values, the Christmas Carol ability.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal wasn't necessarily the movie being marketable, but maybe the Christmas album that was going to come out after the movie, that was more valuable. I think now, though, sequelability, marketability, having a character who you could put their quotes or their face on a lot of merchandise, I think that does up your Christmas value.
I would definitely especially say for kids' movies, example being Frozen.
Or The Grinch, says the man wearing Grinch onesies.
Yes, I am decked out, thank you very much. Yeah, this is a whole other story behind the onesie collection.
Yes. But I think especially for kids, because it's Christmas time, that's what they're currently seeing, it's on their mind. Why not have Grinch onesies? I only watch The Grinch Stole Christmas at Christmas, despite the fact I love the movie, or at least the original animated one.
Not the Jim Carrey one, as I'm aware.
I'm just not a Jim Carrey fan. He's kind of scary, I'm not gonna lie.
He has his moments.
Hi, Charlie. Are you here to be Christmas too?
He has a elf costume.
Oh, adorable.
He hates it.
I'm sure.
Well...
But, like, a good example, I think, would be Peanuts. Because the Peanuts is targeted for kids originally. But I think a lot of the philosophy behind it appealed to adults.
Mm-hmm.
And they're adorable, they're cute, they're easy to put on logos. There's also, the copyright problem with the Peanuts.
I don't know a whole lot about them, so...
I don't know the exact stuff because I was not prepared to talk about the Peanuts today.
I think it's like Snoopy. If I know what you're talking about now, because Snoopy's on like everything from like health insurance to...
There used to be a theme park down the street from where I grew up that had Snoopy Land for a good hot minute. Again, I'm not sure what the licensing rules are for the Peanuts gang and Snoopy in particular, but they seem laxed. Which makes him easy to put on merchandise.
Yeah.
And it's easy to make them that, not over the top Christmassy, but just enough Christmassy. Yeah. A doghouse with some Christmas lights sort of vibe.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I from the stills I've seen of it and what people have talked about it, I get it. It's very much in line with the Muppets, in my opinion, because they're not things I grew up with.
No,
they're not things I'm a fan of.
But I think there's a specific person who that registers with, kind of like how there are some people who really love Mickey and Minnie Mouse. I like Disney. I don't love Mickey or Minnie.
No.
But I know there are people out there, my grandmother was one of them, who love Mickey and Minnie, and they would love to have everything with both of their faces on all of their stuff. I think it's kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's interesting to see how the holidays evolved and how we see movies evolve along with it.
Definitely.
Especially, like, for example, Miracle on 43rd Street.
Yes.
It's very much a criticism of consumerism in America.
Oh, definitely.
Whereas A Christmas Story. It's all about him wanting the BB gun. It's all about the material gifts. Not so much his family coming together, but more so what he wants.
And I would argue that today's Christmas movie goal for, I think, a lot of the Christmas movies that I've seen is not necessarily to retell a story that's already been told, but to tell it in a new way for a new audience. Example being the new Nativity movie. The Nativity story's been around for as long as possible, but having it retold from, I think it's from an animated camel's point of view.
Okay. I
see how that would appeal to kids a lot more.
Which I learned from the book that there's this movie that I'm actually really interested in seeing called Three Godfathers.
Yes.
It's the John Wayne Western.
Yep.
And it becomes this allegory of them being the three wise men delivering baby Jesus to New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Where I know that name from is there's a Japanese animated film called Tokyo Godfathers about three homeless men who find a baby in a dumpster on, I think it's Christmas Eve, and they're trying to find its home or something.
Yes.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that could be a type that's its own vein of Christmas movie.
It definitely is. And I think that's the key to finding your niche in Christmas movies, even if you're not a Christmas person. I'm arguably not a Christmas person.
No.
For me, Christmas doesn't start until after Black Friday is over. No Christmas decorations, no Christmas carols.
Oh yeah. No, at least
that's the level of no Christmas I am. Once it happens, I will be as merry as possible.
Yeah.
But it is not my favorite holiday by a long shot.
I'm fine with it after Thanksgiving, but like every year it just keeps creeping further and further up. Like last year, I think they were setting up stuff just right before Halloween, which, you know, store-wise, I can understand you're getting vamped up for the holidays.
I get it, but also
this year, it was like at the beginning of October, and there was already Christmas crap out there.
Yes.
I'm
this
okay.
is very true.
I'm okay with feel-good movies, but I think that's probably my issue with more recent Christmas movies is that, you know, I'm fine with a happy ending, but they're all about, like, there's a little turmoil and a little drama,
sure, but
it doesn't deal with interesting or important subjects. Like, I'm okay for a good and entertaining movie, but there's a reason, like, why It's a Wonderful Life has endured so long is because it deals with this guy who's gone through all the downs we can think of, and then on top of that, he's contemplating suicide, which...
tough subject.
It's a really dark movie. Same with, I know it's not a Christmas movie. Oh,
is that
shush,
so?
Charlie. Someone doesn't agree with me. But like last holiday, I showed my family Ikiru, which is a Kurosawa film about a gentleman who's trying to reconnect with his family after he's diagnosed with stomach cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of the Christmas tropes to it, but
it's not a Christmas movie.
No, exactly. And even then there's snow, it takes place around the holidays.
Yep.
But there's not an explicit Christmas. And that's where that thin line...
Yeah, it's a hard line to find, but especially as I have had to become the adult in the Christmas scenario in the recent years, I have found that finding the specific genre of Christmas movies that I like has made Christmas much more bearable. Yeah. Because oh my goodness, are you starving to death?
You have a gravity feeder. You are a tubby lard.
I think that's what makes it easier to get through Christmas for those of us who aren't Christmas people. And those of you who are Christmas people, I think that's why part of the reason a lot of our friends do enjoy Christmas so much is because this is the time of season when all of their favorite types of movies are on. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Hallmark movie person. Nope. I'm not a mushy person. I'm not even really here for some personal growth. I'm really mostly here for the Muppets. And so I get why the Christmas movie overarching genre is so popular. Mm-hmm. For those of us who aren't in that genre, I highly recommend trying to find a smaller genre inside the Christmas bubble that you like. Example being, I have discovered I very much like Christmas musicals. There's not a ton of them.
No.
But they're really entertaining, and they usually pull out all the stops for them.
Yeah, and for me, I'm very much in the camp that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Sure.
Like, for me, that is...
You want an action Christmas movie.
Not necessarily. I just want a good development between the character, between the family. Like, It's a Wonderful Life's a fantastic movie. White Christmas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these older movies that I'm coming across that I'm genuinely enjoying.
Yeah.
Elf, for example, is one of my family's tradition Christmas movies.
I hear that.
I know you don't like Will Ferrell, but...
Okay, I will say, though, while I do not like Will Ferrell either, much to my husband's dismay, I will say that Buddy the Elf is probably my favorite character that he's played. There's
Yeah.
a lot of lines that in the movie that I do genuinely enjoy.
Hi, Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite color?
My favorite line is hands down, "Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad."
I think that was the director, actually.
It's so
voiced that.
that part gets me every time, which is saying something.
Again, quotability.
Yes.
My favorite is when he whispers at Santa, "You sit on a throne of lies."
Yes. And so I think finding that genre is what will make a Christmas movie movie for you.
So I've already said what I think is my favorite Christmas movie to date so far.
Yes.
What is your favorite Christmas movie then?
My-
If you had to recommend one film to anyone.
I have one, and it is one that for some reason people have long forgotten, and it makes me sad. I think I forced y'all to watch this a while ago. And better find the right one, because now there's a new movie with the same name. So my favorite Christmas movie, hands down, I watch it every year. Sometimes I watch it multiple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Snowman.
Not the 2017 horror film.
But not the 2017 horror film, which, not gonna lie, I watched the commercial for that one. Cracks me up because all I can think of is the Campbell's commercial from back when I was a kid.
Oh god, I forgot about that commercial.
No, The Snowman is a beautifully animated film from 1982 with some of my favorite music in it. It's not very long. It's definitely directed towards kids. It's more or less a silent film on top of the music, but it's beautifully done in pastels and watercolor, and I love it very dearly.
Yes, and yeah, I think it was... No, we watched it a couple of years ago because you were still living in this complex still.
I think so, yeah.
But
yeah, I know I forced y'all to watch it.
Yes, no, I watched it and I really enjoyed it too. I thought it was well done, and it's a cute, charming short.
Yes, and it plays much like a kid's Christmas book would play, which is why I like it. Second favorite is the original Grinch. Again, because it plays like a Christmas kid's book.
Yeah. Well, let me retract my previous statement. So, Die Hard, okay, I'm split into two categories of best Christmas movie.
I feel that.
Best non-traditional and best online, but not super traditional.
Fair.
Die Hard, of course, is the non-traditional.
I understand.
And The Family Man.
Yes, I can understand how The Family Man would be up there.
Yes, I definitely consider that a holiday movie. It's one of my family's favorite films. I love it. That's something we can get our family to sit down. I learned my brother's girlfriend likes Nicolas Cage movies, mainly because they're stupid, but...
I'll take it.
Yeah, so... But, anywho, I hope you enjoyed listening to us discussing what we feel makes a Christmas movie. I know we didn't come up with a clear definition for it. It's just, it really is all about your family, your personal tastes, and what brings you together, I feel.
Definitely.
So, but this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Happy holidays!
Peace.